Which team would secure the number one seed in the NFC if the Detroit Lions and Philadelphia Eagles both triumph in their final 3 games of the season? The Lions' 11-game winning streak ended on Sunday with a 48-42 defeat against the Buffalo Bills. Detroit started slowly on offense, and this ultimately proved detrimental as their injury-plagued defense struggled to contain Josh Allen and the Bills. Following the loss, the Lions' record dropped to 12-2 for the season. They are now tied with the Philadelphia Eagles at the top of the conference, and the competition for the number one seed will be the main focus for the last 3 games. The Lions lost their slim margin for error with this defeat, but the good news is they still have the power to determine their own fate for the NFC's top spot. Indeed, if the Lions overcome the Bears, 49ers, and Vikings in the upcoming 3 weeks, they will be guaranteed a first-round bye and home field advantage throughout the NFC Championship game. 3 teams are competing for the number one seed: the Lions, Eagles, and Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota can equal the Lions and Eagles at 12-2 with a victory over the Bears on Monday night. But since the Vikings and Lions face each other in Week 18, that scenario will resolve itself in time. However, the Eagles and Lions will not play against each other, meaning we will need to refer to NFL tiebreakers if both teams end with the same record. The initial tiebreaker is the head-to-head result, and as previously established, that does not pertain to the Lions and Eagles. The next tiebreaker is the conference record, where the Lions still hold an edge. Philadelphia's 2 losses were to the Atlanta Falcons and Tampa Bay Buccaneers, both NFC teams. The Lions fell to the Buccaneers and the Bills zone from both the NFC and AFC, so if the Lions and Eagles both win out, the Lions will possess an 11-1 record in NFC games, while the Eagles' record will stand at 10-2. If both encounter one additional loss, the Lions would lead 10-2 against 9-3, and so forth. This scenario would grant Detroit the significant advantage of bypassing the wildcard round and hosting the divisional and championship rounds. Another loss would place the Lions in a precarious position, as the Eagles have only one more opportunity to lose, this week at Washington. They conclude their schedule with home games against the struggling Cowboys and Giants. The Lions have worked diligently to position themselves favorably for a potential Super Bowl run. However, there's now little margin for error. The next 3 games represent some of the most critical moments in the franchise's history. As if the Detroit Lions hadn't faced enough injury challenges this season, they sustained another setback following the Week 15 loss to the Buffalo Bills, as running back David Montgomery suffered a knee injury. According to initial reports, Montgomery experienced a torn MCL that was anticipated to need surgery, sidelining him for the remainder of the 2024 season. Head coach Dan Campbell also confirmed this expectation. "It looks like he's going to need surgery that will keep him out for the rest of the year," Campbell stated. "He sustained it at some point yesterday during the game. David's incredibly tough. He persisted through it and got it examined today." Nonetheless, the situation has changed notably, and there is now hope that Montgomery could return for the playoffs. Here's the latest update and what Campbell shared about the matter. As reported by NFL Network's Ian Rappaport, Montgomery received promising news after speaking with medical professionals and intends to rehabilitate his injury and return at some point during the playoffs. After Lions RB David Montgomery spent the last few days consulting with medical professionals, sources are now optimistic that the star avoided the season-ending surgery that was initially feared, Rappaport reported on Thursday. Montgomery will undergo rehabilitation with the aim of making a comeback during this postseason. Campbell later affirmed that there is indeed some hope that Montgomery might play again. "I'm optimistic based on the last 2 doctors he consulted. I think we might see how this develops," Campbell noted. "It certainly sounds more positive." After all the unfortunate injury updates the Lions have experienced this season, it's refreshing to finally receive some good news. However, Montgomery, who has been ruled out for Week 16, has not fully recovered yet. In the meantime, Detroit will rely more on Jahmyr Gibbs, and players like Craig Reynolds, Jermar Jefferson, and Sione Vaki might all contribute. Anthony Pitman couldn't conceal the broad smile on his face while dressing at his locker after Wednesday's practice. After several months away, including brief stays with other teams, the 28-year-old linebacker was back in Allen Park. Earlier this week, The Lions signed Pitman off the Jacksonville Jaguars practice squad, welcoming a familiar face back into the team. With injuries to Alex Anzalone, Derek Barnes, Malcolm Rodriguez, and Jalen Reeves-Maybin, the Lions found themselves short at linebacker and called on Pitman to rejoin. The Detroit native and former Wayne State standout departed the Lions in the offseason, signing with the Washington Commanders in March. However, he did not make the roster after training camp and joined the Jaguars practice squad in October. Now back in Detroit, Pitman expressed that he and his family are thrilled to return home, reuniting with his guys, coaches, and staff, all of whom he regards as a close-knit family. "I was incredibly excited and just ready to start working again. I understand how we function here," Pitman stated after learning he was rejoining the Lions. "I know it's a tough group, and we put in our best effort, so I'm prepared. My family was extremely delighted. My fiancé was very pleased. Family matters, and being able to be nearer to them, seeing them, and having their encouragement on game days is truly significant to me. They're pleased that I'll be around more often as well." The undrafted rookie spent his initial 4 years in the NFL with the Lions, participating on both the active roster and practice squad. With the Lions short on players as they strive to conclude the regular season strongly, bringing in someone familiar with Aaron Glenn's defense and Dave Phipps' special teams unit was a wise decision. "It's like Dan Campbell mentioned, next man mentality," Pitman stated. "Ultimately, Sunday we have to gear up and play, regardless of who's out there. The most important thing is making sure that if it's your chance, you're prepared for it. There's no time for hesitation or to dwell on past events. We've got to move forward. That's all there is to it." As the Lions assemble their linebacker group, Pitman expressed that he's ready to fill in wherever necessary. Considering his limited defensive playtime, it's probable that he will mainly contribute on special teams, where he has spent most of his time in recent seasons. Throughout 17 games for the Lions over the last 3 seasons, Pitman recorded 1,099 special team snaps. With a 12-2 record and 3 games left starting Sunday in Chicago against the Bear Sohn, more win would set a franchise record for the Lions. For Pitman, who also played high school football at Birmingham Groves, being part of this potentially historic stretch as the Lions pursue Super Bowl dreams feels like a full-circle experience. However, despite the special feeling of returning home, Pitman understands that whether it's practice or game day, none of that holds significance when it comes to the Lions' expectations under Campbell. It's about being a dependable asset when his number is called. Former Detroit Lions safety Brandon Joseph was taken into police custody on Saturday and has been released. A spokesperson from the Dearborn Heights Police Department confirmed to Lions on SI that Joseph was taken into custody Saturday morning and has since been released. The spokesperson could not confirm the cause of Joseph's arrest. According to the Detroit Free Press, Joseph was stopped for speeding and arrested on suspicion of operating under the influence. He reportedly complied throughout the process. Joseph was waived from the active roster on Saturday. A Lions team spokesperson did not provide a comment when contacted, stating that Joseph is no longer part of the team. The Lions also promoted safety Lawrence Strickland to the active roster for Sunday's game against the Chicago Bears. Strickland may assume Joseph's special teams roles in the immediate term. The second-year safety secured a spot on the active roster from training camp and has participated in all 14 games of the season. He mainly served as a special teams player for Detroit, but has also taken defensive snaps at various times this year due to injuries in the secondary. Joseph made his initial NFL start in Week 4 when Brian Branch was unavailable. He initially joined the Lions as an undrafted free agent in 2023 and spent his rookie year on the practice squad while playing in 2 games as an elevation. Joseph was one of 2 players released amid a series of roster changes on Saturday, alongside wide receiver Maurice Alexander. Detroit reinstated Ifeatu Melifonwu to the active roster from injured reserve and signed wide receiver Tom Kennedy, outside linebacker Mitchell Agude, and defensive lineman Chris Smith to the active roster from the practice squad.